Welcome to the Holly Hibbard Leadership Podcast, your go-to source for actionable insights, practical advice, and inspiring stories to help you lead with faith-filled purpose at work and at home. If you're looking to equip, empower, and encourage yourself to thrive in an ever-changing world, you're in the right place. I'm Holly Hibbard, and with over 20 years of experience as a science teacher, leadership coach, entrepreneur, and relationship mentor, I understand the challenges and growth opportunities that come with pursuing your passion. Whether you're chasing career goals, taking entrepreneurial leaps, or finally reaching for those long postponed ambitions, I'm here to help. So let's get comfortable having uncomfortable conversations and explore ways you can lead your family, lead your life, and find your calling with intention and faith. Hello, friend. Welcome back to the show. This is Holly. And one of the things that people tell me over the last decade or so, because of my social media content, videos I've made, or just things I'll share about with my friends, my family, I get this comment of, man, you are so open and vulnerable. How do you do that? How did you get to be that way? And I laugh at it because it's not something that I ever, in retrospect, feel like I had to teach myself to do. But what I wanted to share with you today is there is one thing off the top of my head that I know that when I changed it, my level of perceived vulnerability, my level of genuine authenticity while being with other people or sharing my story or sharing my feelings or my thoughts naturally increased. So today's episode is a way to improve your vulnerability by changing this one word in your vocabulary. So to give some context to this, I want to say that I didn't grow up in a home where feelings were openly shared in a healthy way. My brother and I were raised by a single mom, and it would get tumultuous. It would get ugly. My mom and I especially would butt heads so often. Two very strong-willed people, and God bless my brother because he survived it. So we didn't naturally know how to express our thoughts, our feelings without pointing the finger at the other person or blaming somebody else for how we were feeling. And we perceived, I'll speak for myself, I perceived vulnerability growing up as I didn't want to put myself in harm's way. And I would assert that my mom was probably the same way because she grew up in a home that was verbally, I don't want to say abusive, but I know it had moments. There was alcoholism in the house. There was a lot of levels of responsibility that my mom had to take on at a young age that she wasn't ready for because she was a child. And she built up an armor at a young age where she had to be the strong one, didn't want to show her weaknesses. Her feelings, her thoughts were not always welcome with both of her parents. One of them, yes, the other one, not so much. And she, of course, became an adult. And as an adult, it was the same way. My mom was going through so much awful stuff when our dad left, and she was grieving all that while raising two little kids. And one, my brother and I were so young, it's not like she was going to give us the ins and outs of everything. But two, even as we got older, she never quite revealed the level of depth of her pain and what she went through and how she was feeling about herself in that process. In the later parts of her life, we would have more open conversations about that because her level of vulnerability improved. Her willingness to be more genuine, authentic, improved. And I think it's because my brother and I have worked on that ourselves in our life. So then we became, I think, this open invitation for her to do the same. So my intention with sharing this piece of advice with you and this tool with you today is that you can utilize it so that, yes, you can show up as the most authentic, genuine version of yourself and empower yourself in your life, which then in turn, hopefully similar to in our family, will allow the people around you to feel emotionally and psychologically safe to share how they are experiencing their life. Let's highlight what vulnerability is really quickly. Brene Brown is such a hero when it comes to researching vulnerability and shame and grief. And I will start by saying what vulnerability is not. Although the dictionary will say that to be vulnerable means that you are perceiving a threat. Yes, like in a time of attack, yes, you might perceive that there is going to be a threat, and you can say that your safety is vulnerable. Your ability to survive is at risk. You are at risk of being hurt. And when we are in a vulnerable emotional situation, what ends up happening is there is a fear that if we say what we are actually thinking, actually feeling to a person, whether this be somebody that is a colleague or a family member or your child or your parent or your best friend, there is a concern that you are not going to be received well, and that they could potentially hurt you, hurt your feelings, buck back at what you are saying to them. They could invalidate everything that you are trying to say. You naturally could become on the defense because you feel like they could attack you for what you are about to say, which means you presenting yourself as you are. And because we have a survival mechanism built into us to make sure that we don't die, sometimes that level of vulnerability can feel like, oh my gosh, if I tell them who I am, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and they actually see the real me, I just might die if they reject me or if they hurt me or they say something in retaliation to what I have to say, or they think that my entire existence is an opposition to who they are or who they think I should be. So vulnerability can feel like death. It can feel like emotional death. So how can we make this really simple? A tool that I used when I was in leadership trainings about, 10 years ago, 11 years ago at this point, was the power of noticing how you speak about your life experience. So for example, I could be sharing about how I got through something challenging at work on a project, and it might sound something like, yeah, what I learned from that is when you just make a schedule, then you're more likely to stick to the schedule, and that makes you more likely to succeed. Now, you might have to rewind on that clip there, because if you didn't notice, I'm using the word you. What I notice is if you make the schedule and you follow the task, then you are more likely to be successful. Why are we not omitting, in those cases, the word you? And instead, here's the tool, speak for yourself. Speak for yourself. Switch out the word you and replace it with I. Speak for yourself. So now what it would sound like is what I learned from this work challenge is when I create a schedule and I set a list of tasks for myself, then I am more likely to get things accomplished. I am more likely to be successful in this. I find that I am more creative in these moments. Notice the difference? One is coming from a place of empowerment, and the other is coming from a place of, I really don't want to feel what I'm saying. I'm just going to use the word you because it's easier to speak about somebody else than it is to speak about myself. Now, that's a very surfacey example. So let's go with an example that is more personal. So let's say I'm going through a season of grief, which I am. I did an episode about losing my mom about 2 months ago. And I'm speaking to somebody else who also, lo and behold, and just awful, also lost her mother about the same time that I did. And I could go to her and say, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. Sometimes you just need to cry it out. Sometimes you just need to journal and you just need to talk about it. and you're going to feel betrayed and lost and left. Do you hear what I'm saying? Do you hear what I'm saying? I'm using the word you, and it sounds advicey, and she may not want it as advice. But what if I were to share that that's my experience? Because it is. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying, and switch out the you for I. So it might sound something like, I am so sorry that you're going through what you're going through. For me, I have found that sometimes I feel betrayed. I feel lost. I notice that when I write down my feelings on a piece of paper, my thoughts kind of slow down for a minute. It makes it easier for me to feel at peace. Okay, so you hear how now I'm sharing my personal experience. And then I can say to my friend or to the person, what do you think about that? Or better yet, what's it like in your experience? And give them permission to share their experience. This can be kind of a fun game, not in that serious example, but even when I'm leading leadership workshops, right? Something I notice is when my students start to share how they're feeling and what they notice, they will say, yeah, I noticed that when you da-da-da-da-da-da-da, I say, wait a minute, when you notice who? And they say, oh, I noticed that when and we laugh about it, but it's something you can do in your work environment. You can do this with your family and start to create a culture of personal ownership, personal leadership, personal growth by empowering yourself and those around you to speak for themselves, to get rid of the words, using the word you about everything, especially deep feelings and emotions and thoughts and ideas, and own it. Switch it to I. And when you do that, your level of vulnerability improves, not from a sense of you're now more likely to feel threatened or under attack, although depending on the depth of the topic, you may feel that way, because that's why we don't do it naturally. Because if we were to, heaven help us, say I about everything, everything, that can get scary. That gets real. There is no question in the listener's mind that you are speaking about your thoughts and your views, and they may not take well to it. So it can be a little bit scary. But the reason for desiring an improvement in your vulnerability is people then know that is the real you. That gives them an opportunity to connect with who you actually are, and more important, for you to connect with who you actually are. The more often you can speak for yourself, I, me, for me, in my experience, the more often you can do that, the clearer your life message becomes, your purpose becomes, your intention becomes. It boosts your confidence, because I'm owning that. I'm owning all those things that I did, that I said, that I felt. And I also own the things that I didn't say, that I should have, that I really felt but wasn't ready to talk about yet. There's so much potential in boosting your vulnerability, because it boosts your authenticity and your ability to be genuine with others, and them to really get to know you and love you as you should be loved and adored, and have these great connections, because that's what life is for. That's what life is for. It's about being with others. We were designed to be in the company and the presence of other people, and that is what relationships are. We get to know who we are in the presence of other people. I super hope this was helpful to you. I'm looking forward to hearing how challenging it is for you to notice if it's difficult for you to use the word I, me, for me, instead when you're chatting on a daily basis. Go ahead, start this shift. Again, it's a one-word shift, less you and more I, and report back. I would love to hear, how did this reflect in your life? Did you notice that somebody was more open with you than normal because you spoke from your own perspective and not you? I would love to hear it. Let me know, friend. Okay? And until next time, I'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening. I'm high-fiving you right now because I'm so proud of you for putting your personal growth first. Remember, I believe in you, and with faith-filled intention and committed actions, you can lead your life, purpose, and family to wherever you dream possible. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much to me if you'd take 30 seconds to help others discover the show. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, share the show with your friends and family, or screenshot this episode to your Instagram stories and tag me at the Holly Hibbard. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. I'm always here cheering you on, and until next time, stay curious, remain encouraged, and keep empowering yourself. You're doing better than you think, I promise.